These next three examples are all about getting our ellipse equation into standard form so that we can graph it. So standard form, the biggest thing to remember is we should have an x squared over something plus y squared over another denominator, and it has to equal 1. So like in a case like this, the problem we notice right away is this 9 and 4 in front of the x squareds and y squareds. However, to fix that, what we need to deal with is the fact that that 144 needs to be a 1. So for an ellipse equation, it always has to be equal to 1. To turn 144 into 1, we don't want to subtract 143 because then we would have some random number subtracted over here. That wouldn't be in the form we want. Instead, we just divide everything by 144. We have whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other side. So that gives us 9x squared over 144 plus 4y squared over 144 equals 1. So now the other piece we need to address is these coefficients. So in standard form, we shouldn't have any coefficients out there. Essentially, we need to undo the simplifying that happens with fractions. That coefficient just flips down to the bottom, so we can take it off the top, and it turns into 144 divided by 9. And that means the same thing, because when you multiply by a reciprocal, that 9 would flip up to the top. So over here, the 4 just flips down to the bottom. So now we can just simplify those out. So we have x squared, and then 144 divided by 9 is 16, plus y squared, and 144 divided by 4 is 36 equals 1. Now that is in standard form. We can get all the information we need out of it. This second example follows the exact same process as the first one. The problem, we notice we have a 9 in front of that y plus 2 squared, so that needs to go away. And then it's also not equal to 1. It's equal to 18. So the first thing we deal with is getting rid of the 18, which means we have to divide all pieces by 18. So we have x minus 3 squared over 18 plus 9 times y plus 2 squared all over 18 equals 1. So now we have the right side of the equation figured out. We need to work on, now all we need to do is deal with this coefficient. So the x minus 3 term is fine. 18 stays on the bottom. For the y term, that 9 just flips down to the bottom. So our final answer in standard form here, x minus 3 squared over 18 plus y plus 2 squared all over 2 equals 1. Again, now that it's graphable, we can find the a, b, we can find our center, and we're good to go. This last example is an example of an ellipse in general form. So in order to convert it to standard form, we need to go through the whole complete the square process. So very similar to circles, it has a couple extra things we need to think about. So first step, we just want to group our x terms together. So we have 9x squared minus 18x. Group our y terms together, plus 4y squared plus 16y, and then put anything extra on the other side of the equation. So equals negative 11 because we subtract it from both sides. Now before we can complete the square, we need to make sure the x squared and the y squared term do not have any coefficients. So we need to factor those values out. Whether it creates fractions or not, you absolutely have to factor out whatever the coefficient to x squared and y squared is. So in this case, we have 9 pulls out, then we get x squared, 18 divided by 9 is 2x. And here's where the complete the square process will come into play. So we'll have a plus blank. And then for the y squareds, pull the 4 out. So we have y squared, 16 divided by 4 is 4, plus 4y, again, plus blank. And our other side remains the same for now. So now we need to complete our square for both of these. So for x's, divide by 2. So 2 divided by 2, or negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. Squared is 1. On the y's, 4 divided by 2 is 2. Squared is 4. So now when we go to add, because remember whatever we add to the left side, we have to add to the right side. The key, since we have this piece factored out, sure, for the x's we just added a 1, but it's in the 9 parentheses. So we're technically adding 9 times 1. For the y's, we only added 4, but it's inside parentheses being multiplied by 4. So we have to add 4 times 4. So now we put it all together. For the x's, the 9's out front. If we factor that, that turns into x minus 1 squared. Remember, it's that middle term that goes into those. For the y's, we have that 4 outside. That factors to be y plus 2 squared. And then on the other side, we just add it up. Negative 11 plus 9 is negative 2 plus 16 takes us to 14. Now this looks like the problems we were just dealing with. We need to make sure set equal to 1, and we need to get rid of those coefficients. So to do that, we deal with the getting it equal to 1 first. Divide everything by 14. And then to get rid of the coefficients, remember those will come right on down to the bottom. So our final answer here in standard form is x minus 1 squared over 14 ninths, and then plus y plus 2 squared, and we can reduce this, 14 over 4, 7 over 2, all equals 1. So that won't be the easiest if we were going to graph, because our a and b would not be whole integers. However, that is still the correct answer in standard form for this ellipse.